May 24th. The time, a little bit after 8 o'clock here in Phoenix, Arizona in USA. Just getting my drink ready. And I hope you're getting ready for today's show. Turn down this beat a little bit. This is Street Apologists Live. This is the show where we serve the underserved and look into the overlooked. Broadcasting with a little bit of a new setup. So there may be some kinks. We will find out. Give it some time, give it some time, give it some time, and we'll see. Now, I'm very excited about today. We're going to be reading a lot here. And I think it's going to be very helpful what we're going to be reading. We're going to be reading some old school apologetic resources dealing with a heresy that arose in the past, is still here today in a manner of speaking, and is a precursor to something now we understand to be Hebrew-Israelism. What is it, ladies and gentlemen? It is British-Israelism, sometimes called Anglo-Israelism. So we're going to let this beat right out. I'm still getting a couple things set up. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Hopefully everybody doesn't have to work tomorrow. And so if that's the case, then you should be all good to go today, however long you need to go. And so shout out to DJ Next. He helped me get this new setup up and running. And with that, let's get into the show. Let's go! Wow. I wonder if we'll get any British Israelites to watch. Let me just here. What do you guys think? You know, British dudes who believe they're Israelites. I think they could become best friends with the Hebrew Israelites. What do you guys think? Or then again, maybe not. Okay. All right, let's begin. The Chaos of Cults. The Chaos of Cults. J.K. Van Baalen. Let's take a look at this here. All right. A study in present-day isms. Fourth revised and enlarged edition. And yet, a lot of y'all have never heard of him. He was Walter Martin before Walter Martin. In fact, a phrase often attributed to Walter Martin appears to have originated with Baalen, the author of today's book. Chapter 19, the unpaid bills of the church. Now, he says it's an old saying there. So I don't know if that's true. He was a Reformed pastor, scholarly minded, cult expert. And this book was significant enough that the first time Erdmans published it was in 1938, but then it received an update in 51, 56, 60, and 62. It got set up and printed in 38, but it was in its 27th printing as of April 1973. This is an influential work. Now, I go to chapter 9 on page 162, and it says, Destiny of America, Anglo-Israelism, which is indeed today's show. Now, there we are. Boom. Now, this is not one of our book clubs, but this is a reading session nonetheless. Shout out to Mr. Phil Fox. He just donated in the super chat. Says, let's get this party started. Blessings to this ministry. Appreciate that. Shout out to Nefertiti in the house as well. And you guys definitely want to check out her channel, subscribe, and also check out the shows my man, Mr. Phil Fox, be doing. All right. So I'm going to read and we're going to discuss this. Now, again, this is going to be utterly fascinating. And I love reading about old apologetic issues. It just shows when you start reading with Irenaeus back in the 180s or whatever, you're kind of like, whoa. Justin Martyr 150s are like, whoa. And a lot of these apologists, I'm going to tell you, they had attitudes. You're going to see my man got a little attitude in here. Irenaeus had an attitude. Origen, he had an attitude. Tertullian had an attitude. I'm just saying. It's of the Lord. Here we go. Destiny of America. That's what it says, an exclamation point there. This cult is more generally known as British-Israelism or Anglo-Israelism. Notice, the man comes out the gate calling it a cult. The book is called The Chaos of Cults. Now, we have forgotten about this, but it's still relevant, right? And if you call Hebrew Israelism a cult, don't feel bad, you're in good company. J.K. Van Baalen was doing it 1938 in regards to the Anglo-Israelites. Keep on going. But why not use the more fascinating of its names, Destiny of America? That name holds for the entire North American continent, and the program can appropriately close its broadcasts with the one tune that to Canadians means, God Save the King, and to Americans, My Country 'Tis of Thee. One program and one melody for Dominion Day on July 1st, and for Independence Day on July 4th, one glorious world-saving destiny indeed for all who have at one time or another immigrated to the North American continent. For Britain is Ephraim, and the United States is Manasseh, and the throne of David is now the British throne. That is a blazing paragraph. That's why this book did well. Watch this. You could tell if you're paying attention and you're following the issues related to Christianity and the cults, you should be really interested right now. Now, Jennifer, I need to stop a second and actually look at your comment here. She says, I would never consider myself a British Israelite as I am a Christian American, but per my ancestry and DNA, I am absolutely from Rosh tribes from British Isles, Normandy, France, Les Fontaines to be exact. All right. Okay. Would you consider yourself to be an Anglo-Israelite who is also a Christian, though, Jennifer? And I'd be curious, how do you know from your DNA you're from a lost tribe? How do you know the DNA of the lost tribes? Do you know which tribe specifically? I would be very interested to hear about this. No Saint says, Vocab, I belonged to an Anglo-British Israelite cult. No Saint, could you tell us a little bit more about that? I'd like to hear more about that. Wow, we are starting off strong in this show. This show is going to go all night, ladies and gentlemen. With Mormonism, Anglo-Israelism has in common some wild speculations concerning the early inhabitants of America. Hebrew Israelites of the One West variety got a tribes chart. I'm looking at it right now. It's got Gad and Reuben, Native American Indians and the Seminoles. They do the same thing. Mormons do it. These guys do it. Interesting. Guess what? Hebrew Israelites, you're late to the white man's party. The Anglo-Israelites already been doing this, and the Mormons already been doing it. Come on, man. With Seventh-day Adventism, it has in common that it has some earnest Christians among its ranks, while both systems are vicious. This is good. So he's being empathetic in a sense, saying just like in SDA, there's real Christians in there, but the system as a whole is vicious. Indeed, that's true. All right. Now he's talking about, he's not focused on SDA here. What is he talking about here? He's focusing and speaking on specifically, the Destiny of America group, which is an Anglo or British Israelite group. No Saint specifically brings up Armstrong and the Worldwide Church of God from 72 until 1994. Thank you for sharing. I'm glad you are not in that anymore. Jennifer says, nope, I would never use my skin color in reference to Christianity or in anything else. Honestly, LOL, as it is the epitome of pride and worldly carnal silliness. Okay, that's good. I appreciate that attitude, for real. However, I never brought up skin color. So it seems you're associating being of English or British descent, perhaps, or even European descent with a skin color. Are you also associating that with Israelites in some way? because skin color wasn't really brought into it. You talked about DNA. I would be curious as to your understanding how skin color plays an issue in that, if you could help me with that. Joshua Melton says, Yar Davidi has his 12-tribe chart for British-Israelism. Yes, you are right, Joshua, and I've actually brought up that on the show before. Continuing on here. With the early Russellism, now when an old school apologist says Russellism, they're referring to Jehovah's Witnesses, Charles Russell being the founder. It shares the intricate mathematical measurings of the Great Pyramid of Egypt, from which Pastor, and they put it in quotation marks. See, he's an attitude. He puts Pastor in quotation marks. So I like that. Pastor Russell determined the date of Christ's return, afterward condemned by Rutherford. That was Russell's, one of his successors there. And Professor G.P. Smith wrote this, our inheritance in the Great Pyramid. Hey, shout out to JM. Thank you for the super chat, which will probably pop up here on the screen in a second here. All right. Jennifer says, yes, I believe both of those groups use skin colors to play racial hate rather than biblical truth and love. I'm not sure which group you mean. Help me out here. But again, thank you, JM. Continue on here. This is a quote now from Professor G.P. Smith. And the name of this book he wrote is Our Inheritance in the Great Pyramid. Now, what's going on here? If you have any old Jehovah's Witnesses literature, as I do, somebody bless me with that, right? Yeah, exactly, Nefertiti. Watch Nefertiti's video to understand what she's talking about. Comments on the screen. Maybe drop a link to that, Nefertiti, if you could. All right. I do have some. My brother named Greg in L.A. gave me a bunch. And what happened is you open them up, and there's all these pyramid fold-outs, like centerfolds, right? And there's like these numbers and stuff going on. Hey, John the Armenian, thank you for the super chat. And yes, I am, to answer your question. Yes, I am. And again, thank you very much for the super chat, John the Armenian. Shout out to you. We love Armenians because we love Christians. All right, continuing on here. This is a quote now. Listen to this. On page 1 of the first book of Nephi, which also opens the Book of Mormon, we read, quote, I, Nephi, make a record in the language of my father, which consists of the learning of the Jews and the language of the Egyptians, end quote. Anglo-Israelites were using Book of Mormon as evidence to the Native Americans at one time being Israelites. Hebrew Israelites actually continue on that silly train. This is crazy. This is really what's happening here. I'm reading from an older source about older sources. Do you understand? And maybe it's true. There's nothing new under the sun, and that verse ain't talking about reincarnation. Now, guess what? I've recently discovered in Sholo, Arizona, with the help of people sending me the information, a Hebrew Israelite camp who now embraces the Book of Mormon and says it's for us and says Nephi was a black Jew. Kid you not. I'm looking deeper into it. Oh, shout out to Frank Christian. You have just become a member. Welcome to the Tigra level. Thundercats. Ho! Because all of our channel memberships are Thundercat themed. Now, this is utterly fascinating stuff. Keep on following along. Do not get lost tonight, people. Quote, page 163 now of Chaos of the Cults by J.K. Not only were the reformed Egyptian characters the product of a deceptive brain, he's talking about Joseph Smith, the shade is real in the old school, but there never existed such a language. On page 549 of the Book of Mormon, we read, quote, and it came to pass that I, Mormon, being 11 years old, was carried by my father into the land Zarahemla, the whole face of the land having become covered with buildings, and the people were as numerous almost as it were the sand of the sea. End quote from the Book of Mormon. Continuing on. Now this boy Mormon was one of the last descendants of the godly Nephi, who had left Jerusalem in the days of Zedekiah. So these are lost tribes, folks, supposedly. These Nephites had built a godly civilization during 400 years, but they backslid and were utterly destroyed in AD 384 by the descendants of Ishmael, who had come from Jerusalem with Nephi. Israel's descendants, the black-skinned Lamanites, destroyed all vestiges of civilization in Central America. Now, I feel like he might be meaning to say Ishmael's descendants. because I know the story. I did look at this. I think he might have a typo here. I don't think he means to say Israel's descendants. But nonetheless, notice this is actually part of Mormonism. Mormonism has embedded in it white supremacy, that white is better. And the dark-skinned Lamanites are the wicked descendants. And so that's the explanation that Joseph Smith and Mormons gave for why these Native Americans, who were actually descendants of Jews, were dark by then. They become darkened because of their sin. And old school Mormon missionaries went to Native American reservations. These quotes are all online. I'm not making this up. And you know what they would say? They would say, well, as they become Mormon, these Native American kids, guess what happens? They become more white and delightsome, just like the Book of Mormon said. Now, since then, they've taken out the white and delightsome language. And again, everything I'm telling you, you can find. It's true. I've looked into this. I used to do a lot of stuff in relationship to Mormon apologetics. Now, again, this is not about Mormonism today, is it? No, it's about Anglo-Israelism. But you're seeing the tie-ins with these cultic groups, and the British Israelites were before the Hebrew Israelites, but the black Hebrew Israelites have now picked up a lot of this. Yeah, white and delightsome, for real. All right, now it says fair, I think, and delightsome. All right, continuing on here. Listen to this. Shout out to Paul P. for the super chat. Much love to you. All right, let's see here what he says here. Now, also notice how the Book of Mormon describes buildings in North America. Nah, not so much. Mormon and his son Moroni fortunately recorded the entire story on golden plates, because that's what people wrote with back then. Golden plates. Sorry, not so much. Couldn't carry him around. Sorry, that's my attitude coming out. Which were afterward hidden in the hill Cumorah in New York. Sorry. Until in 1827, they were revealed by Moroni, now an angel, to Joseph Smith Jr., the prophet. The Book of Mormon also tells of an earlier settlement in America by the Jaredites, who had come in cigar-shaped boats to America after the confusion of tongues at Babylon. The Book of Mormon insists that between the Jaredites and the Nephites, Central America and Mexico lay idle for 600 years, and the land was so desolate that it was named Zarahemla, the land of desolation. According to such famous anthropologists and historians as Bancroft, Baldwin, and others, however, these lands have always had a dense population, and the inhabitants have always been copper-colored, that is, neither white Nephites nor black Lamanites, and they have ever been a Gentile people. Thank you very much. We knew that, though, didn't we? Now, when Christians refuse upon scientific grounds to accept these grotesque Mormon ethnological vagaries and fantasies, whoa, that's fire! Do you hear this guy's writing? I gotta say that again. Yeah, now he's throwing shade at the Mormons. I know this is an end around to where we're going, but this is this is a good chapter. It's giving you a full orbed breakdown. Let me do this again. This is fire, bro. Now, when Christians refuse upon scientific grounds to accept these grotesque Mormon ethnological vagaries and fantasies, why should they accept the equally unattested Anglo-Israel fiction which traces America's white population to the Israelites of Zedekiah's time, because Saxon is said to really be Isaac's son, or son of Isaac, and British is allegedly to really be a Hebrew word derived from Hebrew berith, covenant, and ish, man, meaning therefore the men of the covenant. You could add the Hebrew Israelites right in that next sentence, and it'd be a complete paragraph. Now, what he's saying is, if you're going to reject these Mormons, folks, on the scientific grounds, why are you going to go running after this Anglo-Israelism, British-Israelism stuff? They really said Saxon is a contraction of Isaac's son. This is the same sound-alike kind of games, crossing over different languages, mind you, that the Hebrew Israelites still play in 2020. Why? Because Ariah taught them to. Ariah, really. Shout out to DJ Next, the man who helped me set up this for the super chat, and I'll get to your question in a second. Did the British Israelites invent their own language like the one Westerners? To my knowledge, the answer is no. However, I'm still looking into that next. I'm still new to some of this. Some of the old Anglo/British Israelites do call modern-day Hebrew Yiddish. Now, if they do that, that makes me think they're going somewhere with that, to refer to it as Yiddish. I've seen a couple of them call it Yiddish, which is the same thing the Hebrew Israelites do, but I don't know yet. I'm still working on that. Now, they still play the same kind of games, and in fact, Ariah uses the British Bereat Covenant-ish man breakdown to prove that one time, supposedly, Britain, meaning the people who were British, was ruled by black Israelites of the aristocratic class, the last of whom was King James, who was responsible for their Bible. I kid you not. Notice their late REI must have listened to Herbert Armstrong or read something like him. Herbert Armstrong would have definitely been on the radio and all of that when he was popular back in the day when REI was able to, he totally could have got this stuff from there. We don't know, but we do know these guys were first with it. Armstrong popularized this, but REI, guess what? There's a video, Faithful to God goes after Don Yala, an old school one Wester, where he literally makes this exact argument. Check out Faithful to God's video on it. Somebody drop that link if you know where it is on his channel. I kid you not. I haven't heard him use the Isaac son Saxon, but I bet they use it out there. By the way, it doesn't even mean man of the covenant. It means man and covenant. It doesn't mean like covenant man. It's not even doing the Hebrew right. You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, continue on. I just want to show you how bad this is. At best, writes Dr. M. Weingarten, emeritus professor of the Old Testament in Calvin Seminary, if the word British had aught to do with Berith and Ish, it could not mean men of the covenant, but only covenant of man. But besides, also it's talking about the Hebrew, so I misspoke a little bit in there. I didn't actually realize what the next sentence said. But it doesn't mean covenant man or men of the covenant. You see what I'm saying? At the best, it's covenant of man. Boom. Hey, somebody just subscribed. Robert Davidson, shout out to you. Thank you. All right, continue on here. So the Hebrew doesn't even work with it is the point there. All right. But besides, all scholars are agreed, and every seminary student discovers to his grief that the Semitic and Anglo-Saxon tongues have nothing in common. And I actually looked up the article that this was drawn from. It's an article called The British-Israel Movement in the Calvin Forum, December 1947. And I got the PDF and I sent it straight to Abu. And so we've actually got some of this. There's actually one guy who runs around trying to say that English and Hebrew are directly related. He does these through the Greek and all this, but basically no one agrees, and that ain't really right, okay? So let's not try to do that. And so it is. And this is in keeping with the elaborate history of the English language at the beginning of Webster's Dictionary, and also with the findings of the Oxford Dictionary. The only resemblance between Hebrew and English is to be found in a few words that have been taken over from the Old Testament. Dr. Albertus Peters, late professor in the Western Theological Seminary, Holland, Michigan, reminds us that the Anglo-Israelites have gone to such ridiculous lengths in this matter as to draw even the Japanese within the pale of ancient Israel. It's getting bad, folks, but guess what? Judah, what's his name? Nazareth? I forgot his name now. Judah Nazareth. He lives in Japan. He's a Hebrew Israelite. I've debated him before. He's got a real foul mouth, and his camp fell apart, the Torah Knights. This dude does the same nonsense. Listen to this evidence. Evidence. Listen to this. Are you guys ready? Listen to this, people. And I remind you, this book was first written in 1938. For, so they say, there is a remarkable similarity between the Japanese word samurai, the name for the old Japanese military caste, and Samaria, the capital of the kingdom of Israel. I shouldn't be laughing because most of these people are probably dead by now. Actually, Anglo-Israelites still exist among us. Stephen Collins. This is an Anglo-Israelite book. Somebody brought him up earlier, Yar Davidi. Anglo-Israelite. Got some more. Got some in the way in the mail. Not only so, they have even ventured to conclude that since the Hebrew word for a young bullock was Engel, so Hebrew word for a young bullock was E-N-G-L-E, transliterated, therefore, the land of the Anglo-Saxon was called England. And since these Isaac's sons, no doubt, as good Israelites, sacrificed plenty of young bullocks or Hebrew angels, therefore England's inhabitants were called John Bull. I guess the nickname for the inhabitants of England was John Bull, and they actually draw a whole thing about this. This came from a book published on Erdman's 1950 called The Seed of Abraham. Guess what? As soon as I read it in the bibliography, I ordered that. So that one's coming in the mail. I'm getting resources on this. The deeper we go into this, the more embarrassing it's going to be for the Hebrew Israelites. Hey, shout out to Guadalupe Baldovino. It's good to see you this morning. And to your family. No doubt. All right. Continuing on here. For all such palpable nonsense, the movement keeps growing. Huh. Is he talking about Hebrew Israelism there? He's talking about Anglo-British Israelism. Way before. We could have said this. For all such palpable nonsense, the movement keeps growing. Yeah. Until it now claims some 2 million adherents scattered throughout many denominations. That proves you can't stop the awakening. Even the enemies of Israel admit it. You can't stop the awakening. 2 million adherents. He admits it right now. We got him fearful to wake. Why do I say that? Because that's exactly what you got the Hebrew Israelites doing when I bring up the fact that, you know, their numbers are growing and they've got a certain amount. They do the same kind of thing. Brah. In an article, Religion and Race in the Christian Century, April 22nd, 1953, Ralph L. Roy writes, now I actually have a book, right, Ralph L. Roy, right here, another old school apologetics book called Apostles of Discord. And he's got his chapter, or actually more like chapters, also on British Israelism. And one day I'm going to read those as well to you guys. Let me read over here from the article. In the Christian Century, of the scores of Anglo-Israelites leaders in the United States, a few are worthy of special note. Notice he's saying there's a lot. All right. Howard B. Rand of Haverhill, Massachusetts, dean of the movement, led in the organization of the Anglo-Saxon Federation in 1930. Rand operates Destiny Publishers, the cult's central publishing house, and edits an expensively edited, an expensive monthly magazine with 15,000 subscribers. Now that's a pretty good number back then. In fact, if you have 15,000 subscribers on YouTube, you're doing pretty good. Different kind of subs, I get it, but still, you know, it shows us like IUIC. They got those slick produced videos. Doesn't mean they're right, but it makes people go, oh, IUIC, yeah, right. When I deal with IUIC, you know what happens though? It's IUIC, see you later, because they always leave. James A. Lovell of Fort Worth, Texas, intermittently sponsors weekly broadcasts over 50 radio stations throughout North America. The radio was the internet of the day in a way, you know. He edits a 70-page monthly Kingdom Digest and claims to distribute 300,000 pieces of literature annually. Wesley Swift of Lancaster, California, a royal devotee of Gerald L. K. Smith, is regarded as the leading racist chieftain on the West Coast. Notice, these old school apologists weren't afraid to call them names like that. And, you know, we got some racist chieftains today running around, you know, General Yohanan and all those jokers, right? Apologists came after these guys too, you know? This is round 2, ladies and gentlemen. Round 2, round 3 if you count the Mormons, round 4 if you count the Worldwide Church of God, you know, Herbert, you know, Armstrong and all that. William L. Blessing, a lone wolf Anglo-Israelite leader of Denver, Colorado, operates the House of Prayer for All People and publishes a monthly Showers of Blessing. One of his novel fancies is that when, listen, oh gosh, I hate to read this sentence. I remember this part. Okay, I've got to read this sentence because it's in this book. Okay, it's page 165. Okay. And the funny thing is, even though what I'm about to read is incredibly racist, it's actually better than what most one-Westers believe in a weird way. Because at least he's going to accept black folks. But watch how wacky is what he says. And the thing is, remember, there's a precursor, well, a precursor in the show to this. Remember I told you the Mormon missionaries who claimed when they adopted Indian children in the Mormon family and became Mormons that they became lighter? Several shades is the quote. Watch this, okay? Remember, I'm reading Anglo-Israelite, British Israelite sources here. You guys ready? Here we go. One of his novel fancies is that when Negroes become Christian, quote, God begins to remove the cast of color and to restore them into the white Israel race, End quote. So I guess they take proselytes, first of all. At least this guy does. But he's claiming they change. Interested parties will do well to order Mr. Roy's book on Protestant fringe groups, Apostles of Discord, Boston, Beacon Press, 1953. Been there, done that, did it? What then exactly are the teachings of this bizarre system, and what briefly is the answer to its claims? The theory is set forth clearly in the 52-page brochure, The Lost Tribes of Israel, by the late Reader Harris. The booklet opens, by the way, it's published in 1941 on Destiny Publishers and went through at least 10 editions. Here we go. This booklet opens with the incredible claim that when in Leviticus 26, God says that disobedient Israel will be punished 7 times more fiercely for your sins in verse 18, and I will bring 7 times more plagues upon you according to your sins in verse 21, and I will also walk contrary unto you, and I will smite you, even I, 7 times for your sins. Verse 28, these words 7 times more fiercely and 7 times more plagues do not refer to the intensity of the punishment, but must be understood as referring to time. Quote, a time, Mr. Harris informs us, is generally taken to mean 360 years. 7 times would therefore mean 2,500 years, which, if calculated from the captivity of Israel, would reach to about the beginning of the 19th century. Why is he doing that? He's trying to calculate when the lost tribes of Israel, the white European folks, are going to wake up to this truth. Guess what? One Westers like ISUPK actually have an identical type of breakdown where they reached the year 1969 when the school was started by Abba Bivens and those guys. I kid you not. Trying to do the same thing. From this strange substitution of chronology for multiplication, we are to infer that about the beginning of the 19th century, we may look for the beginning of the end of Israel's afflictions. Literally, the time the people will wake up, just like Dante 400 Years Fortune did with 2019. This will be the time when our people can call to the Most High again. Dante, the white guys already beat you to the punch. It's right here in this book, The Chaos of Cults. Why are you copying the white man? Oh, man. It's bad, folks. It's really, really bad. Do you understand what is happening here? I'm just reading from a book, breaking it down. And the poor Hebrew Israelites are just getting destroyed just by reading. Well, that kind of happens, though, doesn't it? It's kind of funny, but it's kind of sad. I'm in this weird spot right now, okay? And so we are told with this agrees that just about that time, some of God's people are awakened to a, quote, spirit of inquiry as to the fate of the tribes with regard to their destiny, end quote. Bruh. How many people we got up in here, man? You need to be sharing this link right now. Share this link right now. Hit the like button. Everyone watching, please. And if you're watching, you know what actually helps in the algorithm? If you leave a comment. Could y'all please leave a comment in here? Just let us know you're here. Tell us your name. Because more people need to come in. Because we're going to be reading this book. And this book is fire! All right, continuing on here. It's fire because it's burning up Hebrew Israelism and leaving it into ashes and cinder with nothing left but black and gray chaff. The next link in the chain of reasoning is that until about 100 years ago, the great fault of Christians has been their refusal to distinguish and separate Judah and Israel. The Bible, quote, this is a quote now from them, however, is perfectly plain. When it speaks of Israel in 99 cases out of 100, the 10 tribes are met, end quote. Judah and Israel always remained distinct after the latter had been carried captive in 721 BC and the former in 588 BC. Hebrew Israelites be going the same lengths to talk about stuff like this too. Upon this distinction, of course, rests all of those modern theories which have identified the lost tribes with the Mormons, or which placed them in Arabia, or identified them with the Nestorians, or again rediscovered them in the Anglo-Saxons. Before we view the alleged results of these facts, put in scare quotes, therefore, let us examine the scriptural data. And when we do, this is what we find. The scriptures teach that all 12 tribes were under Babylonian and Persian dominion, and that the restoration was not a restoration of 2 tribes, but of all 12, and so indeed it had been predicted. Jeremiah, 7th century BC, 3:18. In those days the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out of the land of the north, of the land that I gave for an inheritance unto your fathers. End quote. For Jeremiah had also stated definitely that Judah and Israel were together in Babylon as its fall drew near, and there was no hint at the tribes being lost. Jeremiah 50:33-34. Thus saith Jehovah of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah are oppressed together. Their Redeemer is strong. Similarly, Isaiah, 8th century, had predicted in 11:12, and he will set up an ensign for the nations and will assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the 4 corners of the earth. End quote. For the return of the 10 tribes, see Isaiah 10:20-23 and 14:1. Ooh, they're not going to like them saying that those prophecies are already fulfilled there, but faithful God's been trying to tell them the same thing. You know. Thank you guys for commenting, by the way. And hey, Kathy, it's good to see you join. I can tell by your, you got the Thundercat symbol on you. Thank you for joining and becoming a channel membership. Also, Elizabeth, you as well. There's a couple maybe I missed, but shout out to y'all. All right, continue on. Here we go. The reason I, add a little levity to this is to, make it interesting, right? And besides, I have fun doing this stuff. It's really serious issues at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? But continue on here. Here we go, all right? 2 other 8th century prophets were Hosea and Micah. Said Hosea, quote, and the children of Judah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together, and they shall appoint themselves one head, and shall go up from the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel, 1:11. And Micah's famous Advent message, 5:2, stated that out of Bethlehem in the land of Judah, the ruler of Israel would come forth. Nowhere appears the arbitrary distinction between post-exilic Judah and Israel, which has given rise to Mormon and British Israel fancies. He likes that word, doesn't he? In harmony with the above, the prophet Daniel prayed for the restoration of all the tribes. Daniel 9:1, Daniel 9:7, Daniel 9:11, Daniel 9:15, Daniel 9:18. Consequently, Ezra mentions among those who returned men from Bethel and Ai, centers of the idolatrous worship of the northern kingdom, Ezra 2:28, the men of Bethel and Ai 220 and 3. And Ezra goes on to say, 2:70, so the priests and the Levites and some of the people dwelt in their cities, and all Israel in their cities. Furthermore, Ezra offered a sacrifice for all Israel, quote, and for a sin offering for all Israel, 12 he-goats according to the number of the tribes of Israel, and the children of Israel that were come again out of the captivity, and all such as had separated themselves unto them from all the filthiness of the nations of the land to seek Jehovah the God of Israel did eat, 6:17 and 6:21. Keep on going. The New Testament, following in the wake of the Old, knows of no lost tribes. Paul said, quote, unto which promise are 12 tribes, earnestly seeking God night and day, hope to attain. Acts 26:7. Anna, the prophetess, was of the tribe of Asher. Luke 2:36. Robert Moyer states that the expression House of Israel, he has a book that I actually have on the shelf too called The British-Israel Delusion. All right, and that's right back there. All right, continue on here with this. Okay, I'll get to that one day. That book as well. Robert Moyer states that the expression House of Israel is used 14 times in the Old Testament before the nation was divided into 2 kingdoms, while the phrase House of Judah also occurs 4 times before the division. But the British Israelites claim that after the division, these 2 terms are strictly confined to the 2 kingdoms respectively. Why, then, if according to this theory, only descendants of the 2 tribes returned, did Jesus say that his disciples should enter neither into homes of Gentiles nor of Samaritans, but rather to the lost house of Israel? Matthew 10:6. At the time when Jesus spoke, according to our opponents, the house of Israel was dwelling in Ireland and Scotland. Ireland and Scotland. Can't really do it. The above quoted passages of Scripture, then, are in themselves sufficient to knock the foundation from under the entire Mormon, as well as Anglo-Israel deductions concerning remote descendants of so-called lost tribes, upon whom the Lord God should still look as upon his ancient Israel. It should be borne in mind that the group that returned from Judah and Benjamin was a small minority, as well as those who returned from among the 10 tribes. But these minorities are called Israel and the Jews. Those that remained dropped out of the ranks, intermarried, and were amalgamated among the nations. It would then be as logical and scriptural to speak of the lost tribes of Judah and Benjamin as it is to refer to the lost 10 tribes, but not more so. Having thus rejected the foundation upon which this structure rests, notice going after the foundation, that's good. See that? Let us trace to what fictitious and fantastic ideas this ill-based theory has given birth. Let us consider the things of which Reader Harris wrote, quote, this is a British Israelite advocate, quote, the objection may again be raised that this is all very wonderful, but that rests to a large extent upon tradition. Tradition, however, is the basis of all earlier history, end quote. At least they're a little more honest than some of the Hebrew Israelite writers I see, to be frank with you. You know what I'm saying? I'm just being honest here. Yeah. Oh, I'd like to see that book, Daniel. You've got Real Israel versus Anglo-Israelism. I can't remember if I got that, but I need to get that if I don't. I think I'd like to know more about that. Seriously. Praise God. I see you, Lindy Z. That's good. That's good. Praise God. And that's really ultimately what it's about, you know. Continue on here, page 169. Among these wonderful traditions, then, we meet with the following. British-Israelism does not abandon Scripture for tradition, but it takes such scriptural passages as refer to pre- or post-exilic conditions of Israel and applies them, without further ado, to where they fit in with tradition, inserting their group into the Bible just like the Black Hebrew Israelites. Israel was to become a company of nations, God said to Jacob. Joseph was to become a fruitful bough. His branches run over the wall. Jacob added upon his deathbed. Israel was to be a maritime nation. Quote, I will set his hand also on the sea, Psalm 89. He was to possess the isles of the sea, Isaiah 24:15, Isaiah 11:11, Jeremiah 31:10. Now, do you understand why he's reading that? He's saying Israel's supposed to be a company of nations, according to Old Testament. The British Empire, it said, the sun never set upon it, right? The British Israelites would point to that and be like, what other nation on earth has become a company of nations the way we have? India, here or there, right? Huh. Do you see how this logic can be just done? I'm saying? They have a point, according to the certain bad misunderstandings of Scripture, if you want to go here, like the Black Hebrew Israelites do. Do you get this? Do you see this? A fruitful bough, his branches run over the wall, being prosperous in food production. Do you see? That's Britain and the other countries. That's exactly what we do. Huh. Israel's to be a maritime nation. I will set his hand also on the sea. Huh. Maritime nation. You want to talk about the British Navy for a second? British Navy's no joke. He was to possess the Isles of the Sea. Who did that with their Navy? This is all in the Bible. Anglo-Israelites could pull the same kind of stuff the Black Hebrew Israelites do and be like, look. But the problem is it's all wrong. The foundation is wrong. And then the biblical interpretation is not done according to any kind of healthy exegetical principles. Welcome to Israelism. Whether it's Black Hebrew, Anglo, British, welcome. So with the fiction of the lost tribes roaming the earth and with the centuries to work with, the British Israelites moved the descendants of the 10 tribes over the map as the men upon a chessboard are moved. Exactly what the Black Hebrew Israelites do. Have you read Windsor's book, From Babylon to Timbuktu? That's all that thing's about. I mean, this is wild how much of a copy Black Hebrew Israelism is, you know? They're not going to be able to deal with this, though. They're not going to be able to deal with this. They just can't. They will not be able to deal with this, you know? Gerard Perry says not much of a naval force, though. Well, maybe then. But remember also, maybe now I'm saying. Maybe now, but back, you know what I'm saying? But you got, remember this morphed into Anglo-Israelism, and so now it actually encompasses America as well. So they now America's part of this as well. The way that the Anglo-Israelites have morphed out of just British-Israelism, you know what I'm saying? And of course we are sort of a stepchild, you know, in a sense, as far as America goes. Okay, here we go. His seed shall become a multitude of nations, said Jacob of Ephraim, Genesis 48:19. It will at once be seen that this eminently fits the modern melting pot, the United States. Hebrews Lights argue with these guys. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see you guys argue. The principle of British Israel exegesis is to follow the pattern of history. That's a common phrase I found again and again as I study the literature. And it's very similar to what you see happening in Hebrew-Israelism, right? When certain features are predicted concerning Israel, look for the nation exhibiting those features, and presto, you have found the lost tribes. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That is exactly what the Black Hebrewites do. I don't know if you know how foundational this is to their misunderstanding of history. I've got to read this again. This is... How many people... You guys need... The people need to be... Oh, man. People don't understand how sort of earth-shattering this is. It's been around. It just hasn't been... We haven't really done this kind of stuff in detail yet. Look at this part. Look at this part. Look at this part. The principle of British Israel exegesis is to follow the pattern of history. When certain features are predicted concerning Israel, look for the nation exhibiting those features, and presto, you have found the lost tribes. Literally the same thing Hebrews-Lights do. Literally the same thing. For instance, Israel is to be a Sabbath-keeping nation. That was to be a sign between me and you throughout your generations. Exodus 31:13. Great Britain and the United States alone have observed the Christian Sabbath. That's from the book, so I'm putting that part in quotes. Alone have observed the Christian Sabbath. I mean, the blue laws and stuff like that. There's some truth in a way you could, you know what I'm saying? These guys have a weird case. Not really. But if you're going to use this kind of bad interpretation, then they do. As over against the so-called continental Sabbath, Great Britain and the USA are Israel. It's so plain. Can't you see it? It's obvious if you just don't want to believe it, you know. It was also said of Israel, quote, "Thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow." Deuteronomy 28:12. Let me break this down. Hebrews-Lights use the curses in the latter portion of Deuteronomy 28 to try to prove they are the cursed people, the Israelites of Deuteronomy 28, receiving the punishments for not keeping the commandments. I believe this explains the state of the community, all right? The Europeans and the Americans who believe this nonsense, you know what they did? They used the beginning of Deuteronomy 28, where it's talking about the blessings that Israel will inherit, and pointed to the success materially and all that of Britain and the United States, and showed that they inherited the promises and blessings of Deuteronomy 28. They literally used the same passage in a different way. Bro, do you understand? They're using Deuteronomy 28, just verse 12, not verse 68. Do you see this? It was also said of Israel, "Thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow." Deuteronomy 28:12. Great Britain and the United States have become the greatest money lenders among the nations. Proof right there, right? Proof right there. Similarly, Isaiah predicted that Israel would be an undefeated people. Isaiah 54:17 and 41:10. They've never lost any wars, you know. This is really what they do. But what of the United States? Isaiah prophesied that part of Israel was to split off from the mother country in 49:19 and 49:20. Besides, already Jacob had predicted that while Ephraim was to be the greater, Manasseh was to become a great people. Quote, "Where," exclaimed British Israelites rhetorically, "are the descendants of Manasseh?" So they would do this. Where are the descendants of Manasseh? Where are they? They would do the same exact thing in this man's day. This apologist had to deal with this stuff too. Probably not on street corners, but guess where they did? They infiltrated churches back then. Huh. Sounds like the Israelites are copying a page of that playbook as well, you know? And the answer is, in Isaiah 49:20, we find these words, "The place is too strait for me. Give me place that I may dwell." Therefore, the descendants of Manasseh must be a great people. And many students of Scripture believe that in the USA we find the branch of Joseph that was to be run over the wall. Manasseh was to be the 13th tribe, and the number 13 plays an important part in much that pertains to the USA. The original flag had 13 stars for the 13 states. 13 letters make up the American slogan E pluribus unum. The American dollar contains 13 stars and 13 letters on the scroll. The eagle on the reverse side has 13 wing feathers, 13 tail feathers, 13 arrowheads, 13 horizontal stripes, and 13 parallel lines. This is really the Anglo-Israelite sources. Well, Manasseh is the 13th tribe. Look how the number 13 shows up all throughout the history of the United States. It's obvious, folks. Bro. Do what? Bro, do you see this? The original white population of the United States came from England. I'm reading the book here from their perspective, right? Well, but the destiny shapers of America, that's the name of the group, it's proper noun there, failed to advise us how in the process of crossing the Atlantic, these Ephraimites changed into the children of Manasseh. There is, of course, a great deal more, and it makes interesting reading, but it is all founded upon the same arbitrary method. Huh. He's been watching some YouTube videos, hasn't he? And all this pseudo-exegesis is backed up by equally precarious tradition. What? Did you see that? Bro, he's calling it pseudo back then, man. You thought the first time you heard pseudo-scholarship was when somebody called out polite? No, it's way back here. Christian apologists, man, we've been doing our thing, bro. And all this pseudo-exegesis is backed up by equally precarious tradition. What a great sentence. What a great sentence. Thus, beginning with Esdras and his second book in the Apocrypha, we know that the 10 tribes took this counsel among themselves that they should lead the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country, that there they might keep the law which they had never kept in their own land, and they passed by the way of the Euphrates. Sorry, I messed that up because I was trying to do an accent thing. So I'm quoting from Esdras there. Now continuing on here. This is confirmed by Josephus, who wrote in AD 70, the 10 tribes are now beyond the Euphrates and are in an immense multitude. What became of them? Sounds like Black Hebrew Israelism. Dawada ban Yasharallah. David, son of Israel. According to the Lashawan Kodash breakdown, how are you doing, David, son of Israel? We're glad you're here to, quote, cure all the demons. I got to put your comment on there. He's just here to cure all the demons. Thank you, because the sick do need a doctor. Appreciate it. Dawada. Oh, lordy, help this shorty. British Israelites have the answer. Past old gravestones in the Crimea and a town of the Danube near the Black Sea called Issachar, evidently an Israelitish name, they trace these tribes to Scandinavia and to Western Europe. The Saxons, having come from the Black Sea, captured England from the original Britons and divided the country into sections whose names all remind us of God's promise. In Isaac shall thy seed be called, Genesis 21:12, for they are Sussex or South Saxon. Isaac's son, remember? Essex or East Saxon, Isaac's sons, remember? Middlesex, or in the... Do you see the evidence they're using here? Yeah. There is an Irish tradition that the prophet Jeremiah escaped from Egypt with the daughter of Zedekiah, the last, and by the way, illegally appointed, king of Judah. These two first reached Spain and later Ireland. This is an Irish tradition, okay? Here, this female descendant of David, entitled to David's throne only by favor of Nebuchadnezzar, married an Irish tribal chief or king between 580 and 565 BC. From then on, the line of David has continued, first in Ireland, then in Scotland and England. This is an actual old school Irish tradition, and these Anglo-Israelites would dip into these traditions and be like, see, are you guys seeing this? It's like, oh, man. All right. This is okay, here we go. This feat, however, was by no means the only accomplishment of the aged prophet Jeremiah. This guy's funny. You guys understand the humor here? He also succeeded in taking with him the Stone of Destiny. I'm sorry. And then King Arthur came and Lancelot and the... Okay. It should be borne in mind, namely, that Jacob, when departing from Bethel, had taken with him the stone which he used for a pillow as a token of the divine presence, and on his deathbed had referred to it when, according to Genesis 49:24, he said concerning Joseph, "From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel." This same stone went with the Israelites into the wilderness. Paul referred to it in 1 Corinthians 10:4. The rock followed them. Just look that up in its context. It's supposed to be Christ, by the way. But this is how they do. This is how they do. This is how they do. They did it then. This is how they do now. Jeremiah then took this stone with him, and it became the coronation stone of the kings of Argyle, then of the kings of Scotland, and until recently of the kings of England, resting as it did in Westminster Abbey. So they're talking about having Israelite artifacts here. Shout out to Kai Wing. You just subscribed. Shout out to you, Kai. I'm sorry. Man, I'm sorry. Small wonder the removal of the stone of Scone, December 25th, 1950, caused much consternation. The writer fears, however, that there is about as much historic evidence for all this as there is for the alleged story, which claims that there is among Roman Catholics relics the stone upon which the rooster stood when he crowed at Peter's denial for his Lord, or for that matter, for the feather that dropped from the wing of the angel Gabriel when he announced the Savior's birth to Mary. By the way, this is a big part of medieval Roman Catholicism. They really did, right? This is true, okay? Much after the same fashion, great things were expected some years ago from the Prince of Wales, one of whose names was David, and who, reaching the age of 30 years, in 1924, would duplicate his ancestor, the original King David. But Prince David, having become King Edward VIII, abdicated from the throne of Judah and Israel in favor of the woman I love, and the Duchess of Windsor proved a spoke in the wheels of Anglo-Israelitish exegesis. They are saying that, okay, King Edward VIII was an ancestor of David and is actually sitting on the throne of David. And it was no accident that he was actually called David. You guys seeing this? It is impossible to look from the narrow confines of this brief chapter into various other angles of the strange theory, which, as said before, is reported to have 2 million adherents. Such as the fact that anthropological and racial studies and comparisons have refuted the British Israel assertions concerning the racial peculiarities of the English and British as thoroughly as those of the Mormons that the American Indians are the Lamanite seed of Jacob. We refer the reader to the work of Dr. William Henry Smith for a knowledge of this and other features of the movement. Subscribe to his channel. He's doing that, is what I'm saying. But having given a brief description of the teachings and method of the destiny of America, let us ask in conclusion, so we are winding down here, why should we concern ourselves about this cult? Exactly what I have to answer all the time with the Hebrew Israelites. Why not let it alone? In fact, that's what the Hebrew Israelites tell us all the time. What is the harm it may do, the danger it may harbor? Same thing today. That's exactly what they say. Same thing today. Ooh, same thing. The answer lies close to hand. Hey, Dawada, Banya Sharala, we keep you here. We don't block people randomly, you know? So you're cool as long as you don't curse and threaten and stuff. But Dawada, why don't you bring a little something? Here I am reading a source that is quoting other sources, right? And I'm giving background and helping people understand what I'm reading. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm doing here. And you come in and you just ramble, to be honest with you. Unlearned, teaching the unstable and wicked. Dawada, how do you know who's unstable and wicked in here? How you don't know? And how is it unlearned when we're reading from a book, understanding the context? Your comments literally are meaningless, much like your language you believe in your name, Dawada. Or should I say David? Is your name even really David, bro? You know what I'm saying? The answer lies close to hand. Anglo-Israelites themselves replied to the question, what's the good of it? By saying, first, it will make believers out of unbelievers. More men have remained unbelievers because in reading the Bible and studying history, they reached the conclusion that God has failed to fulfill his promises in regard to Israel. But now, by studying the history of Britain and North America, they see these promises taking shape and being fulfilled. So notice they try to say it's good for evangelism. And secondly, all these numerous material, national, international, racial, and economic blessings that have been held out to the true Israel should be of great encouragement to us in these days of dire distress of the nations and of great international fear. So it brings hope to the people of Israel, basically, is what he's saying. See that? See that? See that? It is all so very simple. This is important to you, tremendously important. Be not hasty in your judgment. Let the overwhelming evidence prove to you that the Anglo-Saxon Celtic people of today are Israelites, and that their nations form the nation of Israel. Then, if you are of Anglo-Saxon Celtic descent, but are a Christian, then you are an Israelite by adoption. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, I've got to read this again. This is good, okay? Yeah, no one's going to delete your sources, Tart70. I don't know what you're talking about. I want to read this again because this is from the Pattern of History, page 16. The Pattern of History is by Destiny Publishers. This is an Anglo-Israelite work. So I need to make sure, again, I'm reading him quoting the source. Now, I don't have access to this pamphlet. So it was what's called a secondary source. He had access to it, so he's quoting a primary source here in regards to the movement. Understand how that works? And so sometimes you lose these little pamphlets and stuff, but fortunately you have this. Kind of like in the situation with Irenaeus. We don't have a lot of the Gnostics he was dealing with, but we have him talking about what they believed. Similar here now. So let me read this again. Shout out to you, Basic. How you doing, bro? Here we go. Let me read this again because this quote is from the book. So this is the reasoning why an Anglo-Israelite back then said you need to pay attention to Anglo-Israelism. This is important. Listen, just imagine a Black Hebrew Israelite saying this today in 2020 and you're kind of gold, right? Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right. This is important to you. Tremendously important. Be not hasty in your judgment. Let the overwhelming evidence prove to you that the Anglo-Saxon Celtic people of today are Israelites, and that their nations form the nation of Israel. Then, if you are of Anglo-Saxon Celtic descent, you are an Israelite. Or, if you are not of Anglo-Saxon Celtic descent, but are a Christian, then you are an Israelite by adoption. You are one of God's chosen race. The Bible gives a story of your ancestors. And importantly, the Bible shows the present, predicts the future, and declares the coming greatness of the Israel kingdom. The Bible is, in fact, your pattern of history. End quote. Exactly what Hebrews today say, except instead of Anglo-Saxon Celtic descent, they would say Black, Native American, and Hispanic descent, if they're a one-Wester. Hey, Dawada, thank you for posting the Bible verse, but what relevance is it when we're not quoting from Peter? Dawada, perhaps you were not paying attention literally to anything. Maybe that's why you're a Hebrew Israelite. We never read from Paul. We're reading from historical sources here. So why are you quoting Peter in regards to Paul's letters? It literally makes no sense. I know because that's what they trained you to do in dealing with Christians. But Dawada, you're not dealing with your average Christians who don't know your doctrine. It's sad, Dawada. David. Tart70 says, urban apologetics tries to debunk Israelites with sketchy evidence and not the strong evidence. Dear God. Do you not understand what's happening? Okay, I'm going to read this. There's only like 2-3 pages left. Let me explain to the Hebrew Israelites who clearly do not understand what's happening here. You guys claim you're part of a modern-day awakening of the lost tribes of Israel, and you use certain evidences from history and certain interpretations of the Bible to prove this, right? Including linguistic similarities, supposedly, things like that. I am showing you from an old source, originally written in the late 30s by a Christian apologist who dealt with the Anglo and British Israelites. Right? It came way before then, but this is when he's dealing with it. That a lot of the stuff you guys say now has already been said by another cult before you, a white cult. Do you understand? Some of literally the exact same arguments, like British, things like that, Deuteronomy 28, literally the same arguments, just flipped on which people they point to arbitrarily. I am showing you that what you're doing is not new. It is a copycat. Do you understand how smashing upon your fake religion that is, Tart 70? You clearly do not understand. But that's what's happening. Everything we do in urban apologetics in regards to Hebrew Israelism has different goals and aims as far as particular arguments. This is how you build a case. This is how you deal with this. Oh, the water's he's getting nasty. He says, warn your mama, devil. The water, you can't handle the arguments, and so you're getting upset. Look at you. You're being naughty. Look at you talking about people's moms and call. Well, I'm really shocked the Hebrew Israelite would act that way. Oh, my dear. Who would have thought? Now, look. Look. That smashes a lot of the cases you guys make. Okay? Not only that. It shows you biting. You biting. Aria biting Armstrong. When Nas first came out, some people accused him of biting Rakim. And then it became understood he was influenced by him and he was doing similar things. He was like the neo-Rakim, but it wasn't really biting. There's a difference between an homage to a style and like biting a style, you know? Y'all are just biters. But you didn't know it, so I'm letting you see. Like Bone, you guys remember Bone? Bone. East 99ers will become from so run bright. We still in the yeah, man, corner, man, baby. Bone, right? Did you know they bit that melodic double time style from Freestyle Fellowship? I got old tapes, specifically Inner City Griots, a song called Mary. You can go back, this is before Bone ever came out. Eazy-E knew about The Good Life, where the Freestyle Fellowship performed. Literally took it, popularized it, had Bone do it. If you get old demo tapes by Bone before they came out, they didn't have that melodic, harmonious double time. They didn't do that. It was later. But y'all didn't know that. And that's okay. You thought Bone came up with it. And that's cool. I like Bone. They're from Cleveland. And the one dude, Busy or Crazy, whichever one, he's from Columbus. So that's cool, you know? But they basically are biting freestyle. You didn't know that, though. Just like you Hebrewites didn't know that you were biting from the Anglo-British Israelites down to Deuteronomy 28 and everything else. But I'm here to help you out and let you know. Y'all been biters. I'm just trying to do my... That's what's happening. And y'all can't handle it. And that's okay. That's okay. That's what's happening. And y'all just don't understand. Shout out to John the Armenian for the super chat. My man. Yes, they do need to read Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 through 45. Continue on here. We gotta get this. We gotta finish this, okay? Quoting from the book now, from the apologist, my man, J.K., what's his name? Van Baalen, I believe, whatever. Observe then that British Israel literature does not bother with speaking of the deity of the Savior or the atonement for the sins of unworthy ones in his blood. It speaks of the greatness of men, of some, nay, many men. Their greatness is to be sought in physical descent or adoption, as the Pharisees of old consider themselves God's chosen people, and despise all others except those drawn into their own circles as proselytes. The dude is nailing it back in 1938. Do you understand? He is showing the same thing. He's saying, y'all don't really focus on the central thing of the New Testament. Indeed, the whole Bible, when you go back to Isaiah 53 and on and on and on and on, all the way back to Genesis 3:15, he's saying, y'all don't get on that. Y'all don't talk about the deity of Christ. In fact, most of y'all don't even really believe he's God. You don't focus on the centrality. That's why you think you need to keep the law, you Judaizers from Galatians. Same thing. He's talking about Anglo-British Israelites, though. That's why y'all open up the Bible and say, this book is about us and our people. This book is about the triune God of Scripture. This book is about the Messiah. This book is about his people, not about you. Sorry, I clipped there. I'm going to use this quote because that was fire. Surely it is all very soothing as long as it lasts. For the Bible, thus read, says of Great Britain, the Dominion, and the United States of America, that they shall prosper, that they shall be invincible, that their foot shall be upon the neck of their enemies. Israel is to be mistress of the ends, sides, and uttermost parts of the earth. That's from the pamphlet. We are even now accused of imperialism. What would it be if the Anglo-Israel ideas should become the prevailing view of prophetic scripture? What if a future dictator, himself neither Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, nor Christian, should decide that the Christians themselves being witness, the Bible, that horrible racial material book, does indeed teach that all nations are to be subject to a fancied Israel with its numerous satellites? Surely here lurks a danger, a political and international peril. Bro, he's saying one reason you should care is because what if this gets political and people start realizing, oh, you're supposed to have the, the neck, and he's saying it could be like some kind of like bad proof text for some crazy imperialism. Bro, this is the eschatology of Hebrew Israelism. Yo, this is something right here. You guys see that? The greater danger, however, lies elsewhere. The fundamental error of this cult lies in its positing another source of divine authority besides the inspired Bible. What to Roman Catholics is the ecclesiastical tradition, and to Spiritists the voices from departed spirits, that to British Israelites is the Great Pyramid. All are condemned, together with astrology, the voice of the planets, by Deuteronomy 18:9-15. For all substitute other sources of religious information for the God-appointed Christ. And instead, I would say, for Black Hebrew Israelites, YouTube. The easy, superficial optimism of the cult is amazing. Before me lies a 40-page shopping guide for tourists, the page being 17 by 11.5 inches. It is the Easter 1954 edition of the International Consumers Magazine, left on my doorstep. Its subtitles are The King of Kings Gazette, the Universal Educator of the Sound Money Economic System Association. Its pages are chiefly filled with advertisements by hundreds of businesses and professional people in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, Washington, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota. The center of the pages, however, contains such articles as Resurrection Life Brings Abundance of All Things, and The Altar Pillar in Egypt Speaks, and King David Destroys the Lord's Enemies, and A Sound Solid Money System Value for Value, and also incidentally World News in Advance, predictive articles concerning the future of Trans-Canada, airlines, and other big businesses. We learned that, quote, a man, a great engineer, and a master mechanic has built this earth. He has laid in it all materials needed for economic abundance. He has risen from the dead for this very purpose, to make us understand that the Bible is God's law book of sound economics. Kingdoms that did not know this have been destroyed, Daniel 2. But now the man proclaims abundance and prosperity to his own, the fifth universal stone kingdom, made up of the British Empire and the USA, the Scandinavian people, who are all the same people of the tribe of Judah, Christ's kingdom now on earth, end quote. Do you understand what he's saying? He's saying the kind of stuff Ron Shields says today. If we apply the laws of this book to our people, then we'll have economic success. Now, there's a certain level of truth to that. That's the problem. I understand that. People are going to misinterpret what I'm saying there. But it's the same kind of like optimism there. And that's why they like to debate which is better for the community. Do you guys see this? I wish I could draw all the connections. I hope you're seeing it. This is important. Okay, this really is. The man now stands and proclaims, quote, I am the resurrection and the life, but no one can get these but through me from the Father, end quote. And to bring to pass all this economic abundance, he has made known in these latter days the, quote, four greater powers made by the great engineer: steam, electricity, gasoline, and oil, end quote. Apparently, it is quite safe to trade with the advertisers, for the magazine proclaims, quote, to the few favored nations, the eternal gospel of abundance, peace, security coming for all, End quote. Yes, indeed. And as it came to pass in the days of Noah, even so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. Likewise, even as it came to pass in the days of Lot, they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, but it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. After the same manner shall it be in the day that the Son of Man is revealed. Luke 17, 26, 28 through 30. And we're almost done. Thus, heedless was slain in Bunyan's allegory, while one take heed escaped. But Mr. Greatheart commented, you cannot imagine how many are killed hereabouts, and yet men are so foolishly venturous as to set out lightly on pilgrimage and to come without a guide. He's referring to Pilgrim's Progress there. He's referring to as the end. The Pilgrim's Progress used to be so understood kind of by every American that you could conclude a chapter like that and people would know what you're saying, but things are different now. How about it? Now, look, he has these questions at the end we're going to look at, and these are absolutely fascinating. Mention some of your objections to the theory of British-Israelism and give reasons. Ooh, okay. Number 2, why is it that these strange ideas appeal especially in our day and age? Oh, trying to see the appeal. Okay. Number 3, why does Satan conjure up before our eyes theories which have a following both among evangelical believers and among those who care only for the material blessings of God's promises? Number 4, if all Christian people had been grounded in the fundamental doctrines of Scripture, do you think Destiny of America would be able to boast as large a following as it does? And the answer is no. The answer is still no. Now, I'm going to look at the live chat and see what's popping there. All right. Let's see how you guys are doing here. I would like to see if you guys have any questions. I would like to see if you guys have anything you want me to read. I'd like to see what's popping. I may have missed something prior, all right? And if I did, apology for that. But while you guys are doing that, you all know what time it is. Y'all know what time it is here, all right? Y'all know what time it is. By the way, rest in heaven, MC Solo, Mr. Solo, the Gospel Gangsters. That's why I'm wearing that shirt. All right. I'm going to do a couple freestyles and then, okay, good. We got some actual questions. Okay, I'm gonna jump into these, but I want to make sure we get questions, okay? Nefertiti asks, the title of the book again, Vocab. Now, let me say something real quick about this in general. When I decided to kind of get into this, I knew for a while I wanted to start addressing the British-Israelism aspect of it. One is to defeat any leftover British Israelites that are around, to be honest with you, what I'm saying? And it needs to be done. But the other is to kind of show these parallels, right? To show what's up. And I've got a bunch of these books. So this is one of them. This is one of the cheaper ones, is why I'm saying this. The Chaos of Cults. I recommend getting the final edition of it, which I believe is the 4th edition. I believe it was done in 1962. Try to get the 4th edition, The Chaos of Cults. It's published by Erdmans, and the author is Jan, Jan, like John. Jean, I don't know how you'd say it, like with a Dutch name, I guess. Karel, Karel. Van or Von Baalen, Baalen. Sometimes it's just JK, like ... Van Baalen, you know what I'm saying? And so right here, that is the book. So it only has one chapter on that. It's called Destiny of America, but I got it for that chapter. It was more than worth it. It also has stuff on astrology, spiritism, theosophy, Christian Science, Rosicrucianism, the Unity School of Christianity, Baha'i, Swedenborgianism, Mormonism, Seventh-day Adventism, Jehovah's Witnesses, moral rearmament, Unitarianism, the Book and the Faith, and just about how to approach the cults and stuff like that. It's almost 400 pages. It's interesting. Notice how a lot of those cults aren't really relevant anymore. Isn't that fascinating? You know what I'm saying? Okay, any other questions that I see out here? Anybody else? Yeah, he did. Shakara Sanders, he did. He died about 2 days ago. I put it on my Instagram. I put in verses and stuff by him. I talked about how I met him twice. I gave a little bit of that. Thank you, D New, for dropping that link. Appreciate that. And he died in his sleep. It's been rumored it's a heart attack. It looks like a heart attack, but I guess technically it's been unconfirmed, but he did die in his sleep. And I know that from some firsthand sources. And Ellie's mentioning about a show we're doing tomorrow. You definitely want to check that out as well. And so let me talk about, I'm doing a show on their channel, which I'll put the link up there. I'm also doing a show tomorrow night on my channel. What is it going to be on? Violence and Hebrew-Israelism. I've got information about the FBI investigating Hebrew Israelites. I'm going to play clips actually from actual discussions with the FBI, the head of the FBI, Director Ray. You're going to see that. I'm also going to show example of some violence in Hebrew Israelism. I've got more information about the Austin Smith case that happened here in Phoenix. He's been sentenced, and I want to talk about some things that happened. I got some news clips that are relevant to his Hebrew Israelism beliefs and what he did there. And then I've also got some information a little bit more relating to the FBI inquiry about the Jersey City shooting and a new development where a man who appears to be somewhat mentally disabled or handicapped, perhaps mentally, I don't know the right way to say it, excuse me, he was beating up senior citizens in a nursing home in Michigan. It's pretty bad. And look at this. Kwam Yasharallah, which means Rise Israel, and Lashawan Quadash says Anglo means sons of Isaac. Listen, you've got your evidences backward. What you meant to say is that Saxon means sons of Isaac. And apparently you literally have not been here at all, because I showed how that has been used by the white Anglo-Israelites way before you. You don't even know your own argument. You don't even know your own argument, though. To be honest, you need to be a little embarrassed, because you're over here saying Anglo means sons of Isaac. First of all, that's wrong. Second of all, that's not even the argument that these groups use. You don't even know the argument. It's Saxon means sons of Isaac. They say it's a contraction, and it's wrong. But where are you getting Anglo from? You're confusing the argument. And they were black in Europe. What's your evidence for that? And that's why the world wants to hide these ancient pictures. Seriously? I mean, do you see this? Do you see this? What's false, Tart 70? What's false? If you're going to say false, vocab, what's false? You tell me what's false. You tell me what's false. Oh, my goodness. All right, you know what? It is time to do a freestyle. And it goes a little something like this. Bring in the beat. 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 Yeah. Bring in the beat. Yeah. Bring in the beat, oh, yeah. Bring in the beat, it's so sweet, so unique. I'm chilling in my seat at the end of the show. Vocab Malone, I'm bringing the flow. Oh, this was real nice. I slice and dice and I cut precise with the Ginsu knife. Ginsu, check it out now, my home, the venue. What men do, they read the menu of the Bible and then they sin too. They sense anew, they don't look at the muscle true. Oh, we coming through. Mic check, 1, 2. Yeah, I'm rapping, son. Shout out to the man Isaiah Braxton. Do a backspin in the live chat. In the background, do you hear that? I believe yes, y'all. Did I pause? I think that's a sample by Nas. But now it's over. Red Rover, send the Hebrew Israelites over for Jehovah. Then they'll get like needing a clover. Why? Because they need luck. Jesus the Christ, thank God he struck with his grace in the place of Vocab Malone. So turn up the bass on the beat. Well, it's so smooth, who I serve, the King of the Jews. Mic check, 1, 2, we coming through. Shout out to D New and plus you too. Ayo, telepathy. Shout out to the man Sean Gregory. moving stuff and reading minds. Peep this basic $4.99 in the super chat. I read the line, I see the live chat, and I'm not blind. I had the glasses, but then I got LASIK. Rocking shoes, maybe some Asics or the Puma. Live out in Yuma, Arizona. Not a baby boomer, not a consumer, but a producer. Peep this out now, got the juicer. Like Tupac, he's on the roofer. The roof is on fire, spinning around like I was a tire. Shout out to the Israelite Jeremiah, plus Isaiah, he's a town crier. Here we go again, take a flyer, but with the gospel track. I rap from here to Boston and maybe Iraq, back to Iran and then to Japan. Jesus the Christ, better than Jackie Chan. He kicks, he slams, he's like Van Damme. Here I come again, I be like I am. He's the God of gods, this is the end. Let's do it again, my friend. Nah, I don't like that one. I don't like that one. Let me pick a different one. Hold on, let me pick a different one. Hold on. There's a different one I want to do. Just give me a second here. Hold up. No. Hold up. No. Hold up. Let's do this one. You guys have any more questions or what? Here, let's do this one. Ooh, ooh, wee. Know you like it. Here we go. Oh, the beat is nice. Discuss those white Israelites. Just kidding. Psych, they don't exist. I'll rock the mic with the lisp like the boxer Tyson Mike. I grabbed the mic, the beat was by Mike, cause it's a sample called Human Nature. I know all the nomenclature. To read the article, see the particle, peep it out now, Hebrew Israelite barnacle. Upon Christian theology, all ought to be free. Yes, y'all, be an adult, be free from the chaos of cults. Oh, that's an old school book. I opened it up, I took a look. I'm rapping on the slow jam. Shout out to Elizabeth Oak, man. Who else today? What do I say? Props to Liza J. Hey, peep the crate. We rock this, yo. It's getting late. Upon the East Coast, the doctrine's toast. I give praise, serve a host, praise. Yo, the host with the most, Jesus the Christ. You know he's dope, but not a dope dealer. Hope dealer, cap peeler. What's realer? Blood spiller, the thriller. From here to Manila, not Manila. I'm at Vanilla, Cecilia. Ooh, killer. Beat made, Jonathan Soko. Grab the beat, put it in a chokehold. Oh no, I'm so old, I don't show my age. It's much too embarrassing. Got the gray upon the beard, looking at me like kinda weird. Steered the conversation to 1930, reading a book to prove I'm nerdy. It was wordy, we read the chapter. At the end, apologetics raptor, like a raptor. Be a hand clapper, give me dapper. Be a slapper, toe tapper, that's the crapper. Peep it out now, I got the dapper. Damn man, what's the plan? Jesus the Christ, the beat was slam like Hulk Hogan on the mat with the leg drop, with the boom bap. We bringing it back like the 1990s. Hey yo Satan, get behind me. Rewind the tape cassette. Shout out to Solo, he did jet up to heaven, so rest in peace. See you again. For now I say peace. Join tomorrow where we make apologetics fun again. We do freestyles cause y'all giving the super chat. Shout out to the mod squad. Roch B, D New, Nate. Got Liza in the house. Got Carm. Who am I missing? Shout out to everybody watching. Sure to come back. Shout out to Andrea Cruz for her hard work. Sure to check out tomorrow's show. You know we're gonna make apologetics fun again. But for now,
Street apologist. 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 On the radio.
shout out to Phil Fox too. What's up with you, Phil Fox? Thank you for all those super chats at the end of the show, Liza. Thank you for Sean Greger for that super chat. Peace out. Shalom.